Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and hanging out with me this evening. This is Getting Familiar, and I am Lady Stars and Fire. Now, on this show, we pretty much discuss anything that is spiritual and animal related. So, we are always going over different spiritual animal medicine, such as your power animals, your totems, your spirit guides. What kind of healing, what kind of knowledge and learning are we receiving from them? Are we receiving it from them? How do we know when it comes into our real, natural, physical life to connect that meaning? I'm always going over things along this line. But today I want to go over familiars. There are many different ideas and concepts behind the familiar. Is the familiar a pet? Is the familiar a demon? Is the familiar a servant? Does the familiar have to live with you? All of these are different concepts that often are misunderstood and misguided. Unfortunately, it's like they say, ignorance is bliss. And that's simply because when you don't know what you're talking about, you don't understand it, you're afraid of it, it is possible for ignorance to be blissful. Because when you don't know, you don't have to understand. Creating exactly that, ignorance, to be blissful. Now the thing is, familiars have been part of existence ever since we can remember writing down stories, passing down stories in our lives, no matter how or where it came from. I mean, the animals are even written down all the way back on walls in different tribes, even in Egyptian hieroglyphics. The animals have been part of our existence for as long as we have existed. And just like everything else, it became confusing. Whether it was familiars, whether it was magical animals, whether it was spirit guides or power animals, whether it was demons, spiritual entities of some form. Throughout all of existence and history, there's been a lot to be confusing, a lot to be misunderstood, passed down wrong, changed, and incorrected. This doesn't just stand for spirit animals, familiars, power animals, power guides. This goes for half of history. I tell people all the time when they question me in my path, and they question me versus Christian belief, so to speak. I simply say, look, if I tell one person this story, and I allow you to tell 10 other people this same story, that story is no longer the same by the time it gets to that 10th person. So what makes anybody think that everything in the world could have ever been passed down absolutely positively correct without missing any information when 10 people can't even seem to get one story right? I believe all cultures, all religions have somewhat of the correct idea. We've just all been misled in certain areas where things have been left out. It's that simple. That's my belief. I'm not telling you it's yours or that you need to believe that. That's just my belief. And when we go back and we look at spirit guides, spirit animals, familiars, and the information that we're taught now, well, we're still trying to sift through the incorrectness to find out what is correct. That's all. The familiar is often viewed or only heard of when dealing with shamanism and witchcraft, when the familiar is of an animal spirit. And that is because it is seen as a spiritual entity or a supernatural form that appears in animal form as a facilitator in the communion of the human with the spirit realm. It is said that they help to understand common objectives and can assist to plan and achieve that objective, but that they are considered neutral. And that this is exactly why I said the familiar can choose to assist. Meaning, it's up to them because they are considered neutral. This is exactly where that joke comes from. Familiars, sometimes not so helpful. This is because it's upon their decision. They can choose to help you. They are not actually a servant. Now, this happens to be one of those areas that I am a little bit touchy on. I will admit it. I don't like it when I hear the idea of people assuming a familiar is a servant. We as human beings, we choose to be of service to others, as well as, in truth, we choose if we are actually going to be in service to our own selves. So, therefore, an animal is exactly the same. An animal has its own idea, its own feelings, its own agendas. It chooses to be of service to you. It is neutral. It has the option to choose if it wants to be helpful or not, if it actually can be helpful or not, or if it wishes to take part, period. A familiar is also seen as a spiritual animal. This could mean many different things, depending on how you are viewing it. Because each one of us, as humans, we have a spirit. We just also are alive. Versus, is it actually an entity? So are we dealing with a spiritual entity or a spiritual animal being? This can actually lead to many confusions when it comes to your spirit animals, your power guides, even totems for that matter. Because now the question becomes, is it an animal entity, not just an animal spirit that also happens to be alive? Like I said, the confusions are set very easily for you to be able to misunderstand. And this is because many ancient cultures would see or choose to view the familiar as a spiritual entity, not actually an alive spirit of an animal. However, though, in today's society, we choose to see the familiar more of a pet, more of an animal that lives with us. So a true, living, breathing animal, period. Not an entity, an animal. You see, and another question that comes with the familiar is, do we choose the animal? This is one of those funny areas. I will never forget because I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine who is a pagan high priest. And he said to me one day that someone was asking him about familiars and if they chose their familiars. If also they could have only one familiar. I remember it because he thought it was cute. He thought it was cute because he was like, as if they just assumed they were only granted to have one familiar in their life. And he told me that he used me as an example when he was discussing how a familiar would work. Basically, how it is that they find their familiars. Because he always calls me the animal lady. Because I have animals around me all the time. The fact is, yes, you can choose a familiar, but you're only asking the familiar if it is willing to be your familiar. Remember, darling, familiars are neutral. They are just like me and you. They have their own feelings, their own opinions, their own thoughts, their own agendas. They are not a servant. They can choose to be helpful, just like you can choose to be of service to yourself as well as others. So is a familiar. So is any other animal that might be able to help you with the objectives you are trying to figure out. This is exactly where that confusion comes in. Yes, you can ask. You can ask any animal. It doesn't have to be a pet. It doesn't have to be one that lives with you. It could be an animal you see from the wild, like a stray cat. Obviously not a bear. It is the fact that you can ask. But the animal itself chooses you. The thing is, just because you have a pet, that does not make it your familiar. Just because you love your pet does not make it your familiar. Now, if you do have a pet that you wish to make your familiar, that is entirely possible, but only after you have asked it to be part of your life as far as being a familiar, to help you in this way. And the best way of going about this is get down on the animal's level. We'll say it's a cat. Get down on the floor with your cat. The importance here is to show the animal you are coming down to its level. This is respect, darling. Because let's be honest, why would you help anybody out who has no respect for you? We are talking about animals here, domesticated or not. They still are animals. We get down on the floor with the animal, whatever it may be. Maybe it's a cat. Maybe it's a rabbit. Maybe it's a guinea pig. I don't know what you want to choose to be your familiar. But we come down to their level. We come down to their eye-to-eye level. And we ask them simply, are they willing to be a familiar to us in our life and help us understand and do our work? We are showing them by getting down to their level that we do not view ourselves to be above them, to be a higher or better being than them, that we respect them for exactly who and what it is they are, and we're willing to ask for their guidance and their help. Or at least we're willing to listen when they point it out. It is creating an equal communion between you and the animal, with both love and respect for one another. After you have gotten down to its level and you have asked it from your heart, the animal at that time will find a way of letting you know, yes, I'll be your familiar and I'll be there for you. Or no, I want nothing to do with this. Now, in truth, if you're an empath, this will go a lot easier for you than it would if you are not an empath. If you have come into your empathic abilities, you will start to sense this a lot easier from the animal because you can understand and communicate better with the animal anyway, because you have started to connect with your empath abilities. If not, this may be a little bit more difficult for you. And if you are not or have not come into your abilities yet to the empath, the answer may take a little bit longer for you to realize what that answer was. Or possibly maybe you just chose an animal that's a bit stubborn. But if the answer is yes, you will start to notice a change. How the animal starts to appear when you are doing specific kind of spiritual work. The animal will be there for you. It will pop up. It will just somehow know that it's that time and that it either needs to be there to assist you, to keep an eye on you, to protect you, or to correct you. If indeed the familiar is wishing to play its part. I'll give you an example. For those of you who know me or who follow me or see me on Facebook, etc., you've seen pictures of Yankee from time to time. Or Doodle. They're both of my cats. Now, Yankee, he is my big, really, really big Russian blue gray cat. Doodle is a little cat that's black and white. I don't know what kind of cat he is. But Yankee is a very old soul for a cat. And Doodle, he happens to be like a teenager new spirit who's still finding his way in general. So he's more like my son. Yankee is my familiar. And Yankee will voice his opinion in a second if it needs to be voiced. Whenever I go to pull the runes for the weekly healing messages, here comes Yankee just walking around the corner. And if I happen to be having any problems, he does one of two things. He either gets up and he'll start knocking the runes to me, or he lays down on them and won't let me touch them, period. Now, in Yankee's way, this is him saying, here, dummy, here's the one you're looking for. Or this ain't the right time. Or he's laying down on him because he just wants attention and don't want me to have it be the right time. See, so you need to know your animal to understand the communication that is coming from the animal so that your familiar can actually be of help. If in fact it is choosing to be of help that day. This is why you have to have that mutual respect. You have to make that friendship with that animal. You have to be of equal parts within this relationship. Because I have never had, not one time, when Yankee has pointed something out that needed to be done or corrected or added into a medicine bag. Period. Whatever Yankee has pointed out has always been right. And it was somehow I was overlooking it. Now let's be honest. Yankee has his days that all he does is lay around and sleep. And he's really not any help to me. But this is part of being equal within that relationship. I don't expect him to do the work for me. It's my work. But because I do respect him, I do love him, and I treat him fairly, when he notices I'm having a problem, he will get himself up and come and help me figure it out. And then he goes back to what he's doing. The simple true fact is, you cannot make a familiar do anything. Just like you cannot make another human being do anything. You can gently nudge them in the right direction and hope that they will do what is best for them or what you are pointing out. But that is exactly what a familiar will be doing for you, trying to gently nudge you in the right direction. You can't make anything or anybody do anything against their will, just as a familiar. You can't make a familiar do anything against its will. But a familiar will gently nudge you in the right direction. As it already understands, it can't make you do anything either. The truth is, a familiar is an ally. As animals are typically known for being able to understand the spiritual realm better, being closer to the spiritual realm. They therefore see things we don't. They feel and understand things we don't, at least not yet. Let's be honest, you can almost pick out any animal and learn something about empathic abilities from that animal. Animals sense things. They sense it better, they understand it better, and they react accordingly. Nor do they question themselves because that is their reality. For all of these different reasons, is why most people today choose to have a familiar that lives with them, that is considered their pet. But unlike an ordinary relationship with a pet, you may care for a pet. It may be a companion of some sort to you. There is some form of a relationship there with you and your pet. But a familiar is going to be a heightened awareness, a heightened relationship, a heightened connection from that of what you would normally find with what you would consider a pet. This heightened connection is part of what makes it a familiar. Because the familiar can sense a form of negative energy or a negative vibration, and therefore it lets the witch or the shaman, whomever it is working with, know. And it will especially notice this negative vibration or this negative energy if it needs to go into protective mode, especially if it is inside the circle, what is known as the magical circle. However, that does not mean it only does it in that magical circle. It is aware all the time and able to give you that warning. But right now, it's time for a break. So we're going to give up a couple moments for our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. And we'll be going over some more information on familiars.
Have you been searching for that perfect candle for your project or working? How about for a specific intent? Something other than the big box store candles made from mystery rocks? Then look no further. Visit the Waxing Witch on Etsy for the best selection of handcrafted candles anywhere. pillars, votives, shaped, plus some giftable candles you won't believe. All their candles are made in-house using a variety of waxes: soy, palm, beeswax, paraffin, and all are clearly noted in the listing, so there's no mystery wax here. From a whole line of saints candles to archangel working candles, and you have to see the new Wicked Wonderland spell candles. They're made to work wickedly quick and wonderfully easy. Or the fun new Sanderson sister pillars. Those are a hoot. And I can't forget their skull candles. These are phenomenal. The burn is beautiful, and I really won't work a trick without one. But that's not all. Any candle can be customized with a scent of your choice, or even color if you prefer something different. They love special orders and will work with you to make your candle the way you want it. They do unity candles, hand fasting candles, or candles made for events, so don't hesitate to ask. You won't find folks easier to deal with, and they all come from their little shop on a Louisiana bayou. So do yourself a favor. Check them out on Etsy at The Waxing Witch. That's The Waxing Witch, witch spelled W-Y-T-C-H. Tell them PBNR sent you for a little surprise with your order.
Is your potential being blocked? Are you keeping yourself from achieving your goals? Do you feel like you're out of step with your life? Are you looking for some answers? Drew Ann Welch is here to help you release your blockages through sound therapy and energy work, intuitive counseling, or tarot readings. Drew Ann is also an author, speaker, educator, and Reiki master. Learn more or book your session today at drewannwelch.com.
Okay, everybody, and we are back. Thank you for sticking around and hanging out with me this evening, or if you are just now tuning in. This is Getting Familiar, and I am Lady Stars and Fire. Tonight we are discussing familiars. Okay, so, what is a familiar? What is a familiar anyway? Before we went on our break, we were talking about familiars that you have within your home. The familiar that you have, that is also a pet. Now, is that your familiar or not? Because simply owning a pet, having a pet, caring about a pet, and loving a pet does not make it your familiar. Can we choose who our familiars are? Do we only get one familiar? A familiar is often only heard of or seen in the form of working with shamanism or with witchcraft. The familiar is a spiritual entity that appears in animal form as a facilitator in the communion of the human and the spiritual realm. The familiar can help to understand the common objectives, and the familiar may choose to assist to plan to achieve that objective. The familiar is neutral. It is an ally to you. It is not your servant, as it has the choice to be of service, just as you have the choice to be of service within your own life. We were also discussing right before the break that yes, you do have the option of choosing a familiar. However, that does not mean just because you chose it, it chose you. A familiar must be in agreement with you. It must also choose you, be willing to work with you. That means it's also all on its own decision, its own options. If you have a pet that you wish to make your familiar, you must ask it. You need to get down to the animal's level. You need to show the animal respect. You need to get eye to eye with the animal and show it. I do not think I am better than you. I am not of more value than you. We are equal. We are allies. I respect you. Will you be my familiar? Are you willing to work with me through my spiritual work? And the animal will give you an answer. Now, I admit, the more empathic you are, the more you will pick up and sense from the animal, which may have just agreed to be your familiar. Or maybe you will sense that the animal is like, no, man, I want nothing to do with it. That's the animal's right to have that choice. Either way, you will start to notice if the animal chose yes or no by the animal's actions, especially if you are doing spiritual work. You will notice the heightened connection, that you are no longer connected as most may see as a pet and a owner. You will start to notice the heightened connection. You will start to be able to understand the senses that are coming from the animal when the animal is trying to speak to you, help you in some way, warn you in some way. I gave an example earlier in the show where I was discussing Yankee, one of my cats, and Doodle, the other one of my cats. And Yankee is a very old soul. Yankee is my familiar. Yankee will, whenever I'm trying to do a reading, create a charm of some sort. He will come up and he has a way of poking to me what it is that I might be missing, that I might be overlooking. And when I go back and I view it from his point of view, I see what it is that he's pointing at. He's pushing towards me. Yankee is always right. Where Doodle, on the other hand, has absolutely nothing to do with anything. Doodle just likes to spend time with me and hang out, but he doesn't have an opinion about any work that I'm doing. Where Yankee will let me know if he thinks I'm doing something wrong because of that meow I get. It turns more into a howl. You see, but a familiar does not only come to you with that heightened connection when you might be doing spiritual work or when you might be in your magical circle. A familiar can come to you anytime and let you know when it is noticing some negativity, some negative energy, some negative form of a vibration that it needs to warn you about. I'll give you another perfect example of what I'm talking about right now. I am a person, when I first came into my spiritual path, I came in scared. My awakening process caused me to be scared. And this is one of those reasons why I'm the type of person I am and I speak out. Because you shouldn't have to be scared. You shouldn't have to be afraid to talk to people to get help. Nor should you have to be afraid if you do talk to people that they're going to think you're plumb crazy. I always had some gifts, but I was robbed at gunpoint. And after that, I was fearful of everything in the world, including my own shadow there for a little bit. Now I'm clairvoyant, so in my own fearfulness, I was bringing all kinds of negativity to me at that time, and I didn't understand how or why or what it was or how to stop it. Now, unfortunately for me at that time, I brought to life my fears, my own demons, and that's part of what I'm talking about. You don't have to be afraid of this. You shouldn't have to be afraid to get help in this area. But for me, while this was happening, I got really, really, really good at protection and protective spells in general. So needless to say, at that time, I went really overboard and I put protection everywhere. It was protected up the wazoo. But I came to find out one night just how protected it really had become. I was in my kitchen and I was making a medicine with oils for pain for someone in my family. Yankee is sitting on the kitchen counter, just hanging out with me as I'm mixing. When all of a sudden, out of nowhere, his eyes gets really, really big and a meow doesn't come out of his mouth. A straight howl comes out of his mouth. I walk over to him and I pet him and I ask him what's wrong. And he howls again. At that point, I turn around and I hear crackling in the air, and I swear it looked like an energy ball flew through the house. Him and I both look at each other completely stunned, and his howl turns into a sad meow at this time. I felt a kind of really funky, bad, negative energy come flying through. as I was seeing what looked like that energy ball, as he was also still howling. So I pick Yankee up and I'm walking around the house, wondering what the world was that. Feeling very uncomfortable, very unsettled at this time. Yankee and I are walking around, and then we notice the two houses directly across the street from my house. The power lines running through those very trees are on fire, and the fire is spreading through their trees into their yards. Now, the power lines that are on fire have a direct connection into my yard, but that fire never crossed the street and came my direction. And to look at that fire, there's absolutely no reason it didn't spread my direction. But to this day, I always give proper credit and warning to Yankee, because without him howling, I may not have noticed that energy ball fly through the house. And I don't care what anybody says. That was my protective spell, and Yankee was forewarning me it was going into effect. If you have chosen a familiar that has agreed to be your familiar and to work with you and guide you through your spiritual learning, you will have a heightened connection with that animal. You two will be able to communicate on a different level than you did before. To this day, if that howl comes out of Yankee's mouth, I pay attention. When Yankee speaks, I listen. It's that simple. For some believers out there, they believe that familiars are actually low-ranking demons, and that they are sent for spells, for cursing, or some type of bewitchments. Look, there will always be haters out there, but I tell you what, Yankee is not a demon, but he is one of my closest friends and allies, and he always looks out for me. And then he simply lays back down and goes to sleep, like a good cat. But that's just his way. Familiars have gotten a bad rap through the years, just like witchcraft has gotten a bad rap through the years. Both witchcraft and shamanism are both still seen as something to be fearful of because of the lack of giving the chance to understand it. But the idea of the familiar does not only come from the idea of the sorcerer, the wizard, the witchcraft, or the shaman. There are actually many different cultures with many different gods or goddesses that are considered to have an animal companion. Not only is it to be said that the companion or the familiar of the animal is with those who are doing sorcery, witchcraft, shamanism, or considered to have been a wizard. The Norse god Odin is a good example. Odin is depicted or viewed or accompanied typically with 2 ravens and or 2 wolves. All 4 of the companions have names. If you follow Norse mythology, this is no secret. All 4 of them have names. They are well known to be companions of Odin. Some may see the 2 ravens or the 2 wolves to have been Odin's familiars, for they were said to be his companions. I am no judge. I'm just saying, some goddesses and gods are considered to have companions that are animals. You see it how you want to see it. But like I said, I am no judge. But with speaking of judgments, the familiars have unfortunately been sent to trial just like the witch trials and been judged for being familiars when in fact they may not have been. They may have just been normal house pets. During the Middle Ages, there was a scare and the cats had to face their demise. Cats were massacred for the thought of being possible to have been a familiar to a witch. During the witch hysteria of the Middle Ages and the Renaissance periods, the obsession with families was mostly in England and Scotland, and numerous witch trials especially related to Matthew Hopkins. Matthew Hopkins, if you do not know, was considered a witch hunter. The Witchcraft Act in 1604 basically would have you put to death for anything spiritual related. Pretty much anything that would question the ability to have actually been considered a witch would have brought you under this act. Now, in the Salem witch trials in 1692, there was also one person who was considered to have been found as a witch, who was hung until death with their dog to hang beside them, simply because it was thought that their dog was their familiar. The reason I bring this up is we all have heard of the witch trials, and it's bad enough that we have treated each other this way. But to take the life of animals simply on mere thought that familiars are pure evil, I find that even more saddening. The animals shouldn't have to be caught in our crossfire of our own ignorance. But sadly, they have always been. It is often said that during the witch trials, if a bird so much as flown up to your window, it would have been considered to have been your familiar. But that is all I'm going to say about this subject, because I don't want to stay in the negativity of this subject and the witch trials. Now, the place I'm going to pronounce next, I'm probably going to mispronounce it. So if you're from there, I apologize. In Nugena Island, it is said they rely on snakes or crocodiles to be their familiars. In Malaya, it is often seen to have had owls or badgers, and that they were passed down from generation to generation to be the familiars. In Africa, it is thought that the wild creatures within the bush would have been the familiars. For the Lugbara, and I may have pronounced that wrong, again, if I did, I apologize. It is seen to have been toads, snakes, lizards, frogs, bats, owls, leopards, jackals, and even monkeys to have been their familiars. And those are just a few areas that I dug up from history to discuss different ideas of familiars depending on the areas versus where you live. This also has to do with the difference between having a familiar who lives with you and having that tight, strong, bound connection because you also live together. You become companions versus having familiars that are actually of the wild. As not all cultures who believe in familiars believe that they are animals that live with you, but that many do believe that they are wild animals. And this brings us back to the story of Morgaine, from the story of Camelot. As Morgaine had become to be known as being a skilled sorceress, also skilled in necromancing as well as shape-shifting. It is often said that Morgaine had either a familiar that was either depicted as a raven or an owl, but that she was also seen as a shape-shifter herself, becoming them, or anything else that she really wanted to become. And the idea of the shape-shifting leaves many scared. It leaves a lot of room for legend and confusion, as ancient shaman and shaman even today are said to shapeshift into their power animals. Now, there's two ideas of shape-shifting. One is that your light body, when you're in meditation or actually in astral travel, may change, may shape-shift, and move you along where you are wishing to go, even into animal form. This is one form of shape-shifting, just in astral projection form. The other is actually physically seen as shape-shifting. However, there is a middle ground here that must not be forgotten. Even to this day, In ritual dances, shamans will shape shift. In their ritual dance, they are connecting with their power animals. They are doing what we call dancing out our animal. We invite the spirit of the animal to connect with us, to become one with us, to actually somewhat of merge with us temporarily and allow them a chance to be again, as well as allow us to gather information from the power animal. During this connection, this ritual period, at that moment, it is said that the shaman will be possessed by the animal, or that the shaman is possessing the animal within it. Either way, the animal is said to have been inside of the body with the person. The person's heightens, change. Their senses change. They're picking up on the animal itself from spiritual form. This is what they are doing when they are dancing out their animal. They may look odd to a typical passerby if you happen to be around when a shaman is dancing out their animal. They may act strangely to you because they may be dancing strangely to you. They are acting in ways of representing their animal. This is part of that shape shifting. Yet outwardly, we still look like the same human being we were prior. It's inwardly that the shape shifting took place. This is that important middle ground that I was talking about. Okay, everybody, it's that time again. We've got to let our sponsors do their thing, and we'll be right back and we'll discuss one animal right after this. Hey, everybody, this is Lady Stars and Fire. Come on over and visit me at our magical sanctuary, where you can get the free healing messages each week, as well as picking up your own personal readings. I do Ruin, I do Tarot, I do combinations, and there's many to choose from. You can also get your astrology, where you can get your personology and your solar returns. Shop around and see all of my personal handcrafted magical items, or see the different spiritual information that is on the site. Come again and visit us at LadyStarsandFire.com, our magical sanctuary, with me, Lady Stars and Fire. Be good to you, love, and use you wisely. Hugs and kisses in the wind, everyone.
Since 2014, the Pagan Business Network has been building resources by bringing together pagan-owned and pagan-friendly businesses. With multiple resources available, it doesn't matter if you're an artisan, musician, vendor, author, publishing company, blogger, podcaster, event planner, or any other organization. We have the resources here to help you succeed. Becoming a member is easy and affordable, even for the smallest of budgets. With your membership, you will get Business Spotlight, which is an article written in an interview style, complete with details and photos. Social media sharing through the Pagan Business Network. A blog roll. A membership card for discounts at participating businesses. You'll also get discounts on tickets to all Pagan Business Network events, and so much more. You can check us out at paganbusinessnetwork.com for more information.
Okay, everybody, and we are back. Thank you for hanging out with me this evening. And if you're just tuning in, this is Getting Familiar, and I am Lady Stars and Fire. Now, we have been discussing familiars all evening, but now I only have time, I think, to discuss one animal. And if we're discussing familiars, and I only have one animal, you know what it's going to have to be. It's got to be the cat. For the cat is typically the most known animal to be considered the familiar. Now, some of its symbolic traits are being clever, secretive, mysterious, intelligent, intuitive, supernatural, watchfulness, selective, and, of course, independent. Now, it is most known that in Egypt, The cats were treated like royalty. They were given special privileges. The Egyptian goddess Bast takes form in the form of a cat. It was seen as a goddess of the cats. Protection, joy, dance, music, family, and also of love. She was worshipped as early as the Second Dynasty. That is 2890 BC. Originally in Lower Egypt, she was the goddess of warfare, when she was known as Bastet. But it was not until the New Kingdom she became exclusively associated with the domestic cat, although she still retained her warlike aspect. She personified the playfulness, grace, and affection, as well as the cunning of the cat, as well as the fierce lioness. And obviously, the cats were sacred to Bast, and to harm one was to commit a crime on her. But I cannot go on and on about Bast, because I will not have time for anything else. Throughout history itself, though, the cats have been seen as guardians, as protectors, in part due to their X-ray vision, to their accurate hearing, their high intelligence. This is some of the reasons why they have been seen as protectors, as well as in Egypt, used to guard temples, as well as fending off evil. In Scandinavia, the cat was used to represent fertility. The cat is also associated with the Norse god of fertility, Freya, as well as the Hindu god of childbirth, Shastia. I do apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrect. The cat is also a sign of childbirth in India. Now, in days long gone, witches was said to have had the ability to shapeshift into a cat. Now, it is known that cats are extremely independent, but it is also seen that they combine a high degree of sensuality with a deeply psychic and spiritual nature. In this sense, a cat is somewhat like us. You're not going to own a human being. We may choose to stay with you, but that is upon our own choosing. Same with the cat. A cat will not be owned. It may allow you to take care of it, but it will not be owned. It will do still as it pleases. And therefore, the cat's medicine includes independence, unpredictability, healing, curiosity, many of lives, magic, mystery, cleverness, seeing the unseen, love, and also the ability to fight back if and when cornered. The cat is great at self-confidence. The cat itself, it moves in an elegant way, lending the mystery of its magic. Because the cat reminds us to celebrate our independence, to celebrate ourself. The cat reminds us how to simply be, how to be us without all the frustrations of being us. To be able to lounge, to nap, as well as being luxurious. As the cat reminds us to finally tune our self-care, to self-pace ourselves, our self-nourishment, to pamper ourselves and take time for ourselves. Allow yourself the style and grace to be yourself without apologizing for it. When it is that you feel you need help with being independent, call upon the cat. Now, despite the cat's reputation of being finicky, aloof, and independent, the cat is actually very affectionate. And because of the cat's affection, because of its love of affection, it actually brings to us great healing power. Because what the cat does is it heals emotions, fears, as well as loneliness. Therefore, affection is one of its greatest gifts of its healing guidance. It allows you to look into its eyes and into its very soul. Its love for wanting to be petted and sitting next to you so that you can pet it as well as it can purr. Its love for affection does this. But it also teaches us of acceptance. Because when it finds the affection it needs from the family, it also is finding acceptance within the family. And therefore, then it wants to return the favor back, or playing its part to the family, so to speak. Anybody who has ever owned a cat that they let go outdoors, at some point, that cat has returned and brought in a bird or a mouse. Maybe it didn't bring it in the house, maybe it brought it to the door. Either way, this is the cat's way of saying, thank you, and here, I brought dinner for the family today. That is its way of showing its affection, playing its part, and knowing it's accepted. The cat also is reminding us of our own role in the family here. Another important message that you may not really see as healing, but it is the cat knows how to teach you to say no. This could be seen as stubborn, or it could be seen as a gorgeous ability. Because either way, what it's teaching you is to embrace the ability to simply be able to stop pleasing others. Please yourself first. Because the cat reminds us, I wasn't only put here to do just what it is you want me to do. While it is highly affectionate, it is a sensual animal. It also is independent, and it's reminding you how to be the same. The cat has a way of looking like it's doing nothing for hours, but taking a nap, when in fact, it's not really asleep often. It's listening. It's paying attention. It's relaxing, though, while it does it. It's teaching us the ability to tune out anything and anyone that may be getting on your nerves, teaching you, please yourself first. However, do be aware of all that is going on around you. Because the cat, it knows what it likes and it knows what it doesn't, even if it's not what you want it to like. The cat knows what it wants and when it wants it. This is where the finicky cat comes from. It is wise to call upon the cat when you need him or her to show you the way of mastering the empowering ability within your own life. But the cat is also all about magic. For the cat is legendary for escaping danger. It is completely uncanny how the cat seems to escape danger. This is why we say the cats have 9 lives. The cat is no stranger to the magic realm or to other realms in general. It is said that they even see them. They are part of them in their everyday life. For they see what is unseen. For they hear what is unheard. They also happen to have a way of knowing just before something does happen. That is part of that keen sense they have. For the cat itself exudes mystery and magic. And if magic is about to happen, the cat is going to know it. It is said if your cat is a familiar and you catch it just staring off, that it's actually watching something. That it is somehow picking up some form of energy or spiritual entity that only it seems to be picking up. It's evaluating it. And then, of course, we have those cats that are the hunters of the house. Now, you know exactly what I mean. The cat that goes off running after nothing. You're not seeing anything. It appears to be running after nothing. And in truth, to you, it may be running after nothing. Hey, we don't flip in and out of realms quite as easily as what the cat is known to. So we don't really know if the cat's playing with an entity or an energy that we don't see, or if the cat is hunting its imaginary mouse. We don't really know. All I know is, like I said before, is if Yankee starts howling, I pay attention. Because I do know my familiar, my Yankee, he knows magic, and he knows when it's happening. For cats seem to love the luxurious energy that comes with the magic. And as soon as you seem to set in to your magical rituals or your magical work, spiritual energy of some form, the cats seem to know it. They seem to just show up beside you and be there waiting and hanging out within that energy. It's that simple. That seems to be what the cat does. For the cat itself, it is mysterious. It is magical. So it's perfect for the cat to do exactly that. And this would explain why it is also the most typical and most known familiar of all. But I'm out of time, so that's all I can put into it tonight. We can't discuss any more right now. Again, I thank you so much for hanging out with me for this hour, and I hope you tune in next week and you have a wonderful week. Again, this is Getting Familiar, and I am Lady Stars and Fire. From now until then, take good care of you and use you wisely, darlings. Hugs and kisses in the wind. Bless be.